Sharing a few thoughts from RuneApe, the dev building out the blocks of Bitcoin on-chain assets. I've been working on virtual world, VR and AR for quite some time, like 2 decades. My master's thesis was about AR and AI. My thesis was about finding this intersection of augmented reality and AI at that time, and also some real-world usages to study scenarios where these three domains collide with each other. I had a very objective view about what worked, what didn't, and showed those results. How I build my process, the process of how I build things and how I test things on pieces of paper. And then it's a master thesis. Well, it was a contribution, I'll say, when I was working. I was working through the cameras, through the imaging and computer graphics. And that's where, right before Oculus had their headset. So I've been working on virtual world ideas and applications for quite some time. A few years ago, when there was a Ethereum NFT metaverse, I thought the future was here, like the future had arrived. I spent a lot of time thinking about economy, ownership, and the virtual world all colliding to one thing. The other side project really excited me, and too bad they haven't delivered yet, which also gives us some hints like why this approach still has something missing. There are like technical constraints and also the market adoption issues. We can have a virtual world. I mean, it should be doable right now, given all the technologies. If we put the best ones together, it should be here. I don't see any technology that's missing. I think that's also Yuga Labs' approach. They want to acquire the best technology to put into their metaverse, but it's not happening. Why? So that must mean something very important is missing, and people are not buying into this, even if the metaverse is built by someone else or the same kind of organization that dictates how it is built. That's my assumption. It might be because the organization owns the whole metaverse, which by design makes it not a metaverse. Especially after 2021, the ownership became a big part of things. We now as consumers have ability to own things. I spent like 2 Ethereum just in gas to mint the other side. That was the highest price I had ever paid to mint anything. I had to do some KYC stuff to get past their criteria to be able to mint. It's crazy that it's Web3, but still our identities cannot be respected. I see that pattern that they slowly build up experiences that allow you to go in. Then after participating a few times, making a few trips to the other side, they asked me for my email, so okay, sure. I was excited and just couldn't wait, so I gave up all my identity and socials to be able to get in. At that moment, I don't know exactly why, but I felt like something was wrong. I literally felt it in my heart. From that point, I felt that the metaverse really should not be gated by entities. It can be gated by tokens, but it shouldn't be gated by entities, which means maybe the metaverse needs to be open. Still token gated, but more open. People should be able to acquire the assets themselves. If they make a decision to gain access, the assets should not be hard get or to buy. A bored ape on Ethereum to get into a metaverse is crazy. It should not be the way, right? But paying a couple dollars to get into a small area should be doable. I mean, if the metaverse is trying to capture more real people in the digital world, it should be that way. It should be open and gated by tokens, not gated by entities that control and can cut you off, or they shut themselves down and you lose your assets, right? When NFTs in the metaverse arrived on Ethereum in 2021, and I jumped all the way in right away, I bought all the NFTs, apes, CloneX, including on-chain monkey, which I actually minted. I bought a few karma and got my family in, and they all changed their PFP. So I took all the blue chip NFTs and incorporated them into these villages in a virtual world. I had been working on a virtual world using Unreal Engine and VR applications where you put on a headset and go into this virtual experience for a bit when SpiritZero introduced me to Bitmap. First, I thought to myself, Bitmap? That's a computer image format, right? Why? What is this? What is so interesting about this? Then he showed me these orange plots, and I said to myself, okay, they do look interesting. There's something about these shapes that seem interesting to me. I think that's about the time when a more profound realization struck me. This was actually community and a protocol all in one. So for instance, if a protocol is good, but there is no community, then it's not going anywhere, okay? And the metaverse has to come from a community. That's something I have learned from my many NFT lessons. Your project has to have a community around it. And so Bitmaps is 2-in-1. So with the protocol, people agree and it's not dominated by one party or entity, although we can say Merlin is dominating because they have a lot of bitmaps. So In a sense, they can be like this. We will have to think about something or not, but if they can dominate, hopefully there are ways to sustain and get those bitmaps out of their hands. LOL. For me, Bitmap is a two-in-one, a protocol and a community. The protocol part. It's inspired me to think more about what the ultimate metaverse token can be. So when we are working on blocks of Bitcoin and talking over things every day, it's all around the idea. What would be the ideal metaverse token? And if we use Bitmap as a foundational part of that, then what is the rest? Right? So because we all know that a text inscription is not enough, at least not for us. Sure, maybe to just have experiences and using it as an ownership token, it might be enough. However, if we aim for more on-chain utilities, then definitely a text inscription needs to have some kind of upgrade. And it seems to me that it should be reinscription, and it might be too obvious, but it should be a reinscription on the original bitmap so that it keeps the provenance on the Satoshi. Because everything comes from attaching data to the Satoshi, a sequenced SAT that is numbered and trackable using the ordinal protocol. Now, the ownership is not the absolute ownership, like with a miner that actually mines the block, but this is actually exchangeable with the UTXO, and we can transact like Bitcoin. So that excites me, this mechanism of ownership and the tech infrastructure that allows it to be further built on. Text inscription is okay, it's simple. That's why it's easy to establish a consensus, not because it's ideal, but because it's simple and participatory. Because anyone, I mean, literally anyone with the access to inscribing can do it. With the ordinal protocols, though, you not only can attach data, you can attach your program to it. So with blocks of Bitcoin, we use reinscription, and it is a program, and that excites me. The text inscription that declares the ownership of the metaverse token, but the program we attach to it, that we reinscribe onto the same Satoshi. That part is what excites me because the program can really provide utilities, and those utilities can be on chain or things can be further extended off chain in the experiences. So that part really excites me. I originally set out to figure out how Bitfeed works. I think maybe a few others also tried. I wanted the exact render of the rectangles. It's not easy. People have complained about how Bitfeed is buggy, but even though it has some bugs, it's already there and has long been established, accepted, and recognized by consensus as like a standard for Bitcoin's transaction referencing imagery. Even right now, when we buy Bitmap, right, we look at how it looks. Sure, some people might look at the block height or other unique characteristics, but most people pay attention to how it looks, and that matters a lot. So I wanted a 3D version of it based on Bitfeed to have a 100% match to first use as an off-chain image. I tried that for some time and created RuneScape during the halving, a time when the fees were crazy. 100, 200 per V-byte and everything in mempool was purple. That's why I made the RuneScapes purple. My goal was to have them all 3D on chain, but I did not crack it in time for the halving. I inscribed them and airdropped them with an off-chain image, no image, to give people a membership token and the utility of accessing a web plot and building tools. The RuneScape token serves as a membership to RuneLab access token for the holder and as reward mechanism tool for us. Blocks of Bitcoin, however, is a programmed upgrade collection representing assets of a much larger and complex utility and economic infrastructure that we are building for the metaverse on Bitmap. I definitely give thanks to Bobble for inscribing the index switch 9 compiled that gave us the OCI. It has been perfect for me to verify, reference, and build. That was great. With blocks of Bitcoin, I think we showed our potential by attaching a 3D program, and now we are in the stage where we ask ourselves, what else? Can we build more things on it? That's a tricky question that relates to the capability of browser, the Explorer that people are using. Well, for me, that's also something that excites me because I know that the game engine can solve the problem of rendering. Unreal Engine has already solved the rendering problem because Unreal Engine developers worked with artists to create an engine with crazy optimization and capable of rendering almost unlimited polygons. I think it was only about 2 or 3 years ago when this technology transformed. And when that happened, that's when I believed the metaverse was actually finally doable. Because when you're building something and the game engine allows you to use any numbers of polygons, well, there's still constraint that you have when you save them because they have to be able to fit into your machine. But the key is being able to render them, which is possible using the super secret rendering techniques handled by Unreal Engine. And that's fine. This is why I choose to separate the on-chain assets from the metaverse experience. They need to be separated. Blocks of Bitcoin is building this way, and the implementations are only the on-chain asset aspect to what we are building in the metaverse. In regards to on-chain assets, it is most definitely our opinion that people need to know that they are there. They need to see them. They need to see them in their browser. They need to see them in their marketplace accounts. They need to see them on their phone and in their wallets. Assets rely on web browsers to be visible, so they should be web browser friendly and should work on any Explorer. They can be fancy like 3D and interactive, where you can zoom in and out or spin them around. We believe that the asset should be 100% on chain as a reflection of what it represents in every way. After all, this is Bitcoin and tech innovation. We know for certain that it can be more than a text inscription and a non chain image. I'll leave that there for now. Then we have the other side, the experiences. So we talk about building on your parcel, right? What are the limitations of building on it? To what extent? So the idea is cool. And everyone is like, people can build on their parcels, right? Why not? But are people thinking about where exactly and how do you see it? That's really the question. Are they on chain and get rendered on your phone, or does it get rendered like times on a browser when you look at them? So there are limitations and there are performance concerns of seeing all things built on web browsers, but it's actually the last concern performance wise when you use a game engine. So from right there at that point, there are two distinctly different but related approaches. So for us, we have to build our on-chain asset. That's where Blocks of Bitcoin is uniquely focused on creating an on-chain asset that can be built in a more feasible way given current browser constraints, because we know that rendering 3,000 to 4,000 parcels with customization is just not realistic. That's our current focus. As we move along and gain traction and funding, we will no doubt come back to these 3K and 4K bitmaps parcels and offer them to be customized. But right now, because we know the constraints of high quality rendering, we chose smaller 1K parcel districts for the on-chain assets to be further developed with less performance friction and a good place where we can add utilities on top of our 3D program. Because it's working, as you can see from our collection, you can experience it. We're adding more utilities. There are so many things hidden there, but I haven't enabled them yet, because if I enable them, well, there will be two things that happen. If I were to enable them right now, confusion and education. Okay, education is our focus and confusion is not. So we will enable them when we have enough education. It's like this. We want to enable a feature when most of the people in our community are more knowledgeable and mentally prepared for the feature. So then this community can educate others. If I turn on the good fancy stuff, then me and SpiritZero will be the ones needing to teach everyone else. And a lot of people get confused. LOL. They're really not ready. This feature is not ready because the knowledge is not there yet, or the majority is not educated enough yet. So certain features should responsibly not be there. Education is a big part for us. I see this as one significant difference in regards to collectors and developers on Bitcoin from Ethereum. On Ethereum, you just need to know how to use the wallet and you're pretty much set. On Bitcoin, you need to understand how Bitcoin works, which means education is a key, and which also means that with every additional part of Bitcoin that you interact with, the more learning that is required. SpiritZero has a special interest in education, which I resonate with a lot. So it's a natural fit for us to work together and for Spirit to communicate and lay out the framework so that people are easily able to get educated. I have been creating those experiences that has educational components able to be amplified by sharing and talking about it, explaining how it works. And at the same time, people get to learn about how Bitcoin works and are better able to appreciate the value of how it was built. So we choose to build mindfully with a structure supportive of education in action. When you join and build with Blocks of Bitcoin, you are exposed to our next level builder environment. There are plenty of accessible educational references and good people to help guide you as you learn about how to build things. But the key part is that you are experiencing what you're learning. You see what you're building in real time with the Arc Builder tool that we put together so that your information absorption and retention are increased. Experiential learning is at the core when we think about any new feature or new utility, because it will utilize how Bitcoin works. And so every part, when we put something new out for us, we have to think about education. And for me, I need to think about how does the user interact with it and also provide experiences that can dive into it deeper and learn about how Bitcoin and ordinals works.